Good evening. Welcome to the T.G. Howard Outreach segment. I'm here today with Fritz. I am Sammy Poindexter. Fritz, we're just going to get into it. If you would, just tell us every and anything that you would like to tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm Fritz Streff, and I'm running for the supervisor position representing the Draper District for Pulaski County. It says you want to know more about me, and one of the things I found interesting was it says, anything that people might not know about you. And the first thing I thought was, well, I work at the New River Community College, and I teach a student study skills class.
Okay.
So we have the students introduce themselves, and we always open up with, tell us something that no one would be able to guess about you. And one of the ones that I always said was, well, back in college, I did roadie work with Cheap Trick for a little while. And it wasn't a big deal, it was just some local stuff, but it was kind of fun, and the kids, the students rather, they seemed to enjoy that. And I thought, maybe that's not the kind of thing that they're asking about. And I said, well, one of the things people might not know about me, particularly when you hear my voice, is that I spent a lot of time here as a kid. I have a family farm down here. I grew up outside of Chicago. Okay. And then in the summers, I would work on our farm. And if anybody's gone to the Wilderness Road Museum, you see this fellow with this long beard and what have you. That's Jabin Baldwin Alexander right inside the door. That's my grandmother's grandfather.
Wow.
So I have very deep roots in the valley, even though it might not sound a whole lot like it. And I chose to come back here after spending 17 years at the University of Michigan.
Okay.
Because the community there, while it's a wonderful community, there wasn't a sense of community. There wasn't a sense of belonging. There wasn't a sense of working for each other to help the community grow and help the community develop. And I didn't want my daughter to experience that growing up. So I literally, on a prayer, left my job there and came down here and said, we're going to try and find something. We're going to make it work.
That's awesome.
And was totally blessed to be able to start at Wytheville Community College. Even more blessed to have a position at New River Community College because I'm much more familiar with that area than I am the region that the Wytheville Community College covers. And that's my ties to the community, and that's why we came back here, was to be part of that community. And then I thought another one. I thought, there's something else. What else can I say that really does this? And I thought, well, we all have defining moments, things that we experience and we don't know at the time that it had meaning. When I was 8 or 9 years old, they were desegregating the schools outside of Chicago. And I had the opportunity to go to a school that was 99% African American when I went there. And that wasn't the defining moment. And it was an interesting experience because I come from a white community. I'm going to a school that's predominantly black with African American teachers. And you talk about being a fish out of water, but I was 8. And it didn't make any difference.
That's right.
It didn't make a daggone bit of difference. And that wasn't the defining moment. It was 1968. In April of 1968, Dr. King got assassinated. And I experienced something that was very, very different to me. We took an entire day, the entire school came together, and we sang hymns, we sang spirituals, and we sang "We Shall Overcome" repeatedly the entire day. I'd never seen sadness like I experienced that day. At the end of the school year, Bobby Kennedy was assassinated, and I experienced the same thing. And at 8 years old, that wasn't the defining moment. Time passes. I'm in graduate school with some guys, and we're talking about back in the day. We're all about the same age, would you remember? And it might have been around Dr. King's assassination anniversary. And I said, well, my experience with that was that, we all got together and we spent the entire day singing and worshiping. And they were like, what? I said, said, no, seriously, we spent the entire day celebrating Dr. King's life and spirituality. And they're like, we don't have any idea what you're saying. That was the defining moment. I had no idea that my experience wasn't shared by everyone, that it was a universal experience of the country. And what that did as a young, upcoming PhD in industrial psychology to me was it said, you've got to listen and work with the people that you're working with. You've got to understand what their experiences are, because their experiences might not be your experiences. That's right. And one of the things that I want the people to know more than anything is that I'm here because your voice matters. It's not what I want to do for the community. It's what we as a community can come together to do to make this all work. Wow. And that's just like the most important thing of things that very few people have heard this story, because it's awesome. Kind of a personal story, but I think it's one that's important to share because it really gets to the fundamentals of what I'm about as someone that's looking for this position. Is I'm here to help the community achieve the community's goals. I'm not here to help the community achieve Fritz Streff's goals.
Exactly. That's strong. That's strong. That's good. That's good stuff. It is. Wow. That's good.
It is. Two. Question number 2. Well, that was a good story. It really
I appreciate that.
It really was. What do you envision your elected role's purpose to be and its impact on Pulaski, Virginia?
My role as a supervisor, I think, is mostly to answer questions, or to ask questions rather, not to answer them, but to ask questions. My background is in helping organizations achieve their goals. That's what I've spent my entire career doing. I did it in Michigan with the state police. I did it in Michigan with the Department of Transportation. I worked with the legislature. I worked with the governor's office. I worked with the Secretary of State's office. All of that work was to allow that organization to understand exactly what its goals were and to invest its resources in a way that it achieves those goals. Pulaski County has some very interesting challenges in front of it right now. We've invested $45 to $50 million, depending on whose numbers you look at, on a brand new middle school, which is going to be a beautiful thing, and it's going to help our students a lot. We have an additional maybe up to $20 million of debt burden that's on top of that, which means we don't have resources. We've spent what we can do. I don't see us being able to go back to the taxpayers and say, I'd like another 5 cents on 100 to do these other things. Now, of course, if we had a project and the county was willing to invest that, I'm all for it. But the real challenge we have is, with that kind of tax burden, we have a rate of elderly in the community that's going to increase, as I recall, something around 40% over the next 10, 15 years, okay? Old people are staying, and they're on fixed incomes, and they have limited ability to add to what they're able to pay. Younger people are leaving, even though we've done a wonderful job of recruiting new manufacturing for the area. There are still challenges that are there that cause folks to want to leave. And manufacturing is a relatively narrow niche, and if that's not the kinds, even though there's a lot of different kinds of jobs, there's not a lot of jobs in all those different areas that a manufacturer brings in. So if that's not what you want to do, we don't have a lot of choices. And for a young person, they need to see the world and sow their oats and really experience a lot of things. And sometimes they don't come back because the things that the knowledge and the skills they've developed somewhere else might not necessarily translate as well with what we've got going on here as we'd like it to. We also have a significant problem for a lot of our working people in that They like to work more, but there's no way to take care of the kids. There's no way to pay for someone to take care of the kids because the amount of money that you make is eaten up by childcare. So we've got this population at both ends of the age spectrum that's causing a challenge for the community to respond to. So what we've got to try to do is find a way where we can address both those problems simultaneously. While they sound very dissimilar, they're very similar. And the similarity is both of them require a community effort to bring resources to bear, and a lot of that's people, not money, to address the problem. The challenge is right now, there are certain members of the community that seem to be inclined to disagree and remember old disagreements and carry that through rather than to work together to find a solution. I hear a lot of folks, I don't hear a lot of folks, some folks will say it's this way or that way.
Okay.
It's good, bad, it's, you know, whatever, red, white. And the fact is in order for us to achieve the things that we want to achieve in Pulaski County, we've got to bring people together, not to agree on what they want, not to agree on how it's going to be spent, but to find places where that agreement exists and take advantage of those agreements.
Yes.
And find that area where there is agreement so that we're not arguing over what people want in their perfect world, but what we can accomplish in a world where cooperation is required.
Yes.
And a small community like Pulaski County, what would it be, like 36,000 people? It's a relatively small place. It's a very large geographic area, and it's very complex. It's complex because we have cities. Well, they're towns, but it's an urbanized area, people that live close together, and they have different needs than the people that live outlying in the area. Draper District spans the whole county kind of long ways. Part of it's in the town of Pulaski, which is different than the town of Dublin, which it also reaches into, which is different than Draper proper there in the center, you know, with the old town of Draper, which is different than the lake, which has a very different set of population. And all of those groups have different needs, and different desires, different skill sets, and if we only listen to one of those constituencies and say, yeah, you know, the votes are there, so I'm gonna be that guy, or the votes are here, I'm gonna be that guy. I'm the guy that wants to bring people together and find where there's commonality. And we're gonna work in the places where there's commonality first. And we're going to do the easy stuff first. And the easy stuff is, if you agree on this and I agree on this, let's put aside those differences and let's get that done first. Let's pull that out. So my impact on the county as a Board of Supervisors member is to try to get more communication across organizational lines, you know, traditional lines of demarcation. You know, we've got a school board that's elected and a Board of Supervisors that's elected. We both represent the same constituencies, okay? We have different roles in government, but we need to work together to solve the challenges that both of us have. You know, yes, we need to have good schools. There's no question about that. Yes, we need to have fire and policing, okay? But we only have so many resources to invest in those things. So let's get together early on and talk about what those needs are so that we can prioritize them, not for next year, not for 2 years, but for 3 to 5 years out. We know what our infrastructure needs are. We're replacing 2 antiquated schools, okay? But we've got other schools that are aging every day. We've got a very old high school. Now it's not very old even in the Virginia sense, but it's going on, what, 50 years old.
Yes.
And that kind of infrastructure requires work. All of our schools require work. All of our county buildings require work. So let's come up with a plan that lays out what those needs are long term so that rather than putting out the fire the latest catastrophe, because they come up. I mean, buildings,
That's right.
weather, I mean, all sorts of things happen. Let's see if we can develop a plan that allows us to look at that long term, so that we can make sure that we have the resources that we need for the things that we want. I always try to tell people, we have all the money in the world for the things that we prioritize. And as long as we understand what those priorities are and we live within that budget, everything will work. And can we have everything? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This isn't a place where you have that many people on fixed incomes where we're going to be able to go and reach out and get more taxes from people. It's not feasible. It's not going to happen. Even if they had it, you'd literally be taking food off some of those people's mouths. This is not a wealthy county as a rule. We have some very wealthy people, and we have some extremely impoverished people. We have challenges in our social structure where we've got people that are being raised by grandparents or friends because mom's in jail and dad has a substance abuse problem, or dad's in jail and mom's has a substance abuse problem, or both of them do. And all of those people count. All of those people are important, and we need to find a way to work within the environment that we've got. We can't turn on a light switch and have that problem go away. There is no instant answer to any of this stuff. If I had it, I'd be here. I'd say, here's the instant answer. This is great. This is going to work. But my role is to bring what I know about workforce development, because I'm working with the workforce development people at the college for 15 years. I know where we stand according to where our people are employed. We have 4 times the rate of manufacturing employment as the country at large. That means that when the economy, the manufacturing economy goes down, we're going to take a major hit. I know that we have about half as many small entrepreneurs, private entrepreneurs, as the country at large. While we're out there, we need to recruit business. I'm not saying we don't need to recruit business. We've had a great job of doing it. The guys have just been knocking it out of the park, bringing in those jobs. We're also trying, we the county are trying to improve the environment for small business or the small entrepreneur, or what have you. But the small entrepreneur has challenges that big business doesn't have, and we're not well situated right now to support those people. And the question is, working with the people in the county, working with the people in the businesses and industries out there, what can we do to help support small businesses? By small business, I mean, a guy wants to be a plumber, that's a small business. It becomes infinitely more complex if he wants to bring on another guy with him, or a gal with him. How do you do a child care facility? The paperwork will bury you. And where do the resources come to be able to do that? What are we doing as a county to try and help make it easier for people to make it through those first few years, which are the make or break years for any new business? What can we do to recruit or make this place more suitable for someone to want to come here as a plumber or as an electrician or as a contractor? And I don't mean a contractor to build houses, but to work on our infrastructure. We've got a lot of old houses here. We have a lot of people whose income, when you look at the information, is well above what they should be paying for a house. So we have people who are living under their means, so to speak, which compresses the housing market for those people that don't have a lot. And I've heard some people say, well, one way to do that is we'll find a way to bring in more higher end housing, which will make available some of the less expensive housing. That's one way to do it. That assumes that that's what people are going to actually do. What do we do for the people in the short term that need somewhere to live, that are making it day to day to day in terms of being able to keep them in Pulaski County? So we need to do all of these things simultaneously and not just focus all of our attention on one strategy. obviously you need to focus, because an unfocused strategy is no strategy. But we need to look at where we have opportunities. You know, is there a way to develop business skills? Is there a way to provide services for the small business in a unified sense so that not everybody has to hire their own personnel guy or their own FICA manager or what have you to make those things work?
Okay. Wow. Great. I've got one more for you.
You do.
One more for you here, and that is, in recent months, grassroots movements to increase historical awareness and affect positive change in response to community needs in Pulaski County has grown. Examples of this would be the CAFE Training School Project, which is set to revitalize and repurpose the space to preserve items of cultural importance and address the child care needs of the community. The Adair Theater Group, its mission is, of course, to provide outreach and entertainment throughout the arts, and us, the T.G. Howard Community Center, Inc., and we're reinvesting and enriching lives of people in our community, residents in our community. What are your thoughts on these efforts, and how would you play a role? Not so much as a elected candidate, but as a private citizen. Then you can just
Sure. History is central to my being. You probably got some of that when I was talking about my history. So it's absolutely essential that as we move forward, we don't forget where we've been. And how do we invest in that? We invest in that with people. Because where we have resources, it's great to be able to invest. When I say in this case, dollars and cents.
Yes.
Where we have dollars and cents, it's great to be able to do that. But what we have here are a lot of people that care about community. A lot of people that care about where we've been and where we're going, and are willing to give a lot of themselves to do that. I'm an Elk, so I know the Adair Theater Group very well for quite a while. And it's the opportunity to provide space. It's the opportunity to provide connections with people. You find out there's a need. I might not be able to meet that need, but I can talk to Bob. Bob might not know, but Bob knows Jim. Jim knows Margaret, and all of a sudden we found a way to meet that need. And that's what community does. And that's why these community groups are so important, is it gives you a focus on coming together, a place to come together, a reason to come together, to make things work and to actually be the kind of community that I came down here to be part of. That's not as common in a lot of other places. A lot of more urban areas, and that my experience has been, people will get together and they know their buds and they'll help their buds, but it's not even on the block. You might not even know your neighbor's name. You see him when you leave in the morning, you see him when you come back, maybe he's out mowing his lawn or whatever. These things work because the community cares. We have a caring community. And my role in that has been to try and find ways to make things work. And if it means we've got space up in the Elks Lodge for those folks to do that, that's fantastic. If we're having difficulty getting them up and down those steep stairs, we're going to find a way to try and, we're going to try to find a way to make that work. You know, the outpouring of support that I've seen for the Calfee School recently has been fantastic. It hasn't been one segment of the community. It's been across segments of the community. Those are the kinds of things that work. That's how things change. That's how things grow in a community, is when people come together for a purpose that's bigger than themselves.
That's right.
And serve the purpose, serve the community, not serve yourself. So, you know, that's the way I see that working.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And that is the final question. And we do appreciate your contributions to this community. I can see that you're passionate about it, and that's important. But I will give you a moment to say or give one last remark, if you'd like.
I just want people to know that I care about this community greatly. For 6 years, I've been on our Public Service Authority Board, working to make sure that the health and safety of our residents is primary as we develop our water and our sewer and our garbage systems. For 4 years, I've been working on the Planning Commission in the county, with the goal being that the rights of individuals not be superseded by the money of people that want to make change. I care about this community. I came back to this community. I will serve this community in any way I can to see that this community succeeds. If chosen to be the representative for the Draper District, I will serve there. Absent that, I will serve in other ways. And I think that all of the people that watch this feel the same way. They all serve the community in ways that they can, that fit their skills, abilities, and desires. I'm here to help everyone's voice be heard as we go through the processes of government to try and make Pulaski County all it can be.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.